Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Athletes' Journey, Winning on and Off the Field, a special podcast series looking at the financial journey of athletes through the eyes of some of Australia's most influential sporting figures. I'm Brent Reid, and today I'm here with Director of Athlete Wealth Management, Robbie Farah, and General Manager of Football at the PNG Chiefs, Michael Chammas. Welcome, Michael.
Mate, I know it's the 9th episode, but it's also the 9th take to you to get that out.
Got there in the end, though, Nick. There, Perseverance pays off,
well
buddy.
done, mate. Very proud of you.
Would know.
How'd you get this guy?
Welcome, mate. Well, listen, we might as well kick it straight off, hey? Give us, you're obviously a former journalist, former nemesis of mine for many years.
And mine.
And yours, yes.
I'm waiting for the stitch up here.
Take us inside the journey. Obviously, how you got into sports journalism. How did that come about?
Basically a bloke who loved footy, played it, but was never good enough, really. So I just decided that if I couldn't play it,
you just put on shit that
I just bagged the blokes who do.
People that do play it.
So that was how it started. I actually, all my electives for uni before I decided were probably sports science. I thought that was the way I wanted to go, and maybe try and become a physio or get into the sporting, into a sporting team through that side. But I don't know, last minute, I changed to journalism, and here we are.
So how did you initially get into journalism? Obviously you became pretty influential, I'd say, in
Don't wrap him too
rugby
much,
league.
Robbie.
I was waiting
Not wrapping
for
him, but where did that start? How did that progress?
Yeah. So when I started uni, I was doing an assignment, and because I'd come through the Parramatta system playing footy there, I knew a lot of the guys at the club. I was in that age group with like Tony Williams, Jared Hayne, Timmy Manor, Chris Keating, Hodkinson. So I did an article. I think it was with Craig Catterick, the trainer, about something to do with the Parramatta Eels. And the local paper picked up the article, and the guy rang me and said, "Look, I need someone to help me. There's no money, but if you want to cover the local lower grades for Parramatta Eels, you can do that." And I was just like, bloody oath, I want to do that. And it helped because that was I knew a lot of the guys. It was my age group. And I just every weekend for free, I would cover flag, SG ball, reserve grade games, going to the sheds, guys like, I think the reserve grade at the time, guys like Blake Green, as I said, Hayne, Hodkinson, Keating, all these guys playing lower grades, and did that for a year for free until the cadetship came up at the Fairfield Champion, and I took that, and that's where I started. And slowly Fairfield Champion, Illawarra Mercury, Sydney Morning Herald, and
So what was your big break, you reckon? Like, what was the one story you look back on that you say, that's the moment, you knew you'd made it as a journalist?
I don't know if I made it. I just remember driving to, because I'm a Dragons fan, right? It's probably why I gave you a lot of shit over the years. But I remember driving to the Illawarra Mercury, and for me, like, they were my heroes still. Like, I was still young. And I just remember driving over Mount Ousley and just like the view there, and going on my first day, knowing that I was going to Dragons training session. And I just remember just being like, it doesn't get better than this, this is my childhood dream. And to do that at the Dragons, actually, I did it for about a year and a half. And because the Dragons were doing so well, the Herald, because it's owned by the Fairfax company, they were using a lot of my copy. They weren't sending people down every day. And eventually they started to get to know who I am, and they were short one night, and you'll remember the night clearly. It was a Monday night football at Campbelltown, Tigers v, and it slipped my memory who, but it was the night that Simon Dwyer did his shoulder.
Yeah, I think it was the Bulldogs maybe.
Was it? Yeah. And the Herald asked me to go cover it for them, and it was a big thing for me because I was like, I'm covering this for the Sydney Morning Herald. And like, that was a pretty big night, like you would remember after that. And obviously, I don't think people knew the enormity
and
the significance of what just happened. Yeah. But there was a lot of concern for him, and I covered that game, and it was, and then obviously the aftermath from that was really, really sad. And imagine he's a close friend of yours. So that was really my first introduction to being part of a
like a big story.
Metropolitan newspaper, big story. And then when I eventually got the chance to go to the Sydney Morning Herald, they sent me to a game, my very first game. I went with Glenn Jackson, who you both know, at the NRL. He was at the Herald at the time. And that very first game was the night that Manly and Melbourne, Donny Brookvale. And I remember that.
The brawler Brookvale.
Mate, I remember that day we rocked up before the game, and Glenn Jackson says to me, mate, he said, I'll do the match report, you do the news. And I said, yeah, sweet. I didn't know what the hell the difference was. But yeah, I said, yeah, no worries. And that erupts. And Jacko turns to me after 10 minutes of chaos. He said, I'll do the news, champion.
Yeah. You mentioned you worked for free early on in your career, Mick. I imagine that's that taught you the value of hard work, right? And perseverance. And is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Or was that something that was ingrained in you already?
Yeah, a little bit. My dad was pretty hard on me in terms of like, you got to get a job. Well, yeah, like nothing was sort of like, here's a car you work. Yeah, we had to go out and work. I worked at a fruit shop when I was like 14, and it was instilled in me that you had to work to get everything that you wanted. So that wasn't unusual, but I also didn't see it as work either. Like going to cover footy games, sitting in a press box, I was tripping out. Like, how good is this?
In those early days, forgive my ignorance, are you a freelancer? Like, are you getting paid per story or per article? Like, are you selling your article, or are you contracted to, like you said, the Herald or whoever it may be?
No, so I obviously worked for free, then got the job at the cadet, Fairfield Champion as a cadet, and it was just a full-time job, but it was, I saw the contract the other day actually. It was $32,000 a year when I started. So it was, mate, for me, out of school, I was maybe 19 at the time, full-time, and it wasn't a lot of league. I was covering New South Wales Premier League in soccer, so a lot of Marconi, Sydney United, Bonnie Rig, and that's where I started. But money, it was just a full-time contract, but it wasn't very much for me at the time.
And how did that change, like, through your career, obviously, as a journalist? Your progression, you obviously, as I said, you've gone up the ranks, I'm assuming, and like it's fair to say you would have earned a lot more money down the track. So financially, you've got a young family. So personally, like, what sort of financial decisions were you taught as a kid? Like from your parents, that you've taken on board and that you've sort of achieved through your career and your progression?
I think for me, like, and you would understand this with a Middle Eastern background, like I had a girlfriend who's now my wife, but we were together from when we were 17. And in the Middle Eastern culture, you don't live together till you're married, right? So there was a lot of saving going on to buy my own house, and it wasn't earning a lot of money, but there was definitely an emphasis on, well, if I'm going to get out of the house and start my own life, then I need to save a lot. So I was very mindful of everything I earned and saving it. And it wasn't until, I remember when I was at the Herald, I got offered the job at the Herald, and I was about to get married, and they said to me, well, here's the job. You want to come to the Sydney Morning Herald? It's a grade 1, which I think from memory was about 50,000. But I was at the Allura Mercury, and they said, well, keep you here, and it was a grade 4, and it might have been like 70. And when you're saving for a wedding, you want to put a deposit on a house. It's like, I don't know if I could do this, like knock back the guaranteed 70 grand to go to the Herald. And in the end, I thought about it for ages. And I went back to the Herald, I stood on, I said, you know what, the best thing for my career, it might be a short-term loss, but I reckon I'll back myself to make it up in the long run. And I ended up rang Ian Fuge, my former boss, and said, I'll take the job. And he said to me, good answer, because I wanted to see if he'd come here for the right reasons. And he ended up giving me that grade 4. But he wanted to see that if my motives for going to the Sydney Morning Herald were just financial. And I might try that with one of the players.
So what did you learn out of that, Nick? What did that teach you? What lessons did you take away?
Probably that you got to look at the long-term picture. Like, and I'm sure you've been in the situation as a player. Sometimes you're thinking, are you worth more at a certain time? And I've seen over the years, you look back and at that Manly situation with Cherry Evans and those senior players, right? Their view with him is like, oh, you got to bide your time to earn this money. Whether you sit on the Stuart Watmo side of things or the Cherry Evans side of things, like there is a view from some people that you got to bide your time. And for me, I just felt like if I was good at my job, the money would come. And it probably wasn't until that I got into television that I really started to see. I don't know if you remember this conversation, Reedy, but I was still, I was at the Herald, but I remember Reedy was everywhere, like on Triple M and you talk about freelance. And I was just had my full-time contract and I had nothing else, but I could see like I respected what he was doing because he was on Triple M, he was earning money elsewhere, and everyone took the piss out of him that he had 1,000 different earnings. But like I just saw how hard he worked, and I was just like, I'd love to do that one day. And so when the opportunity came to do stuff like Triple M or Buy Round and podcasts and things like that, I was just like, I saw how he handled it, and I wanted. I'm not sucking up to the bloke because I bag him most days, but he showed me a lot. about how you make it in rugby league media.
Well, I'm a bit the same, Mick. Like when I got my break in journalism because I did stuff for nothing, right? That's what you do in our job sometimes. That's the way you get a leg in the door, really, because you do stuff. Triple M I started doing for nothing.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then
I started
it
for free,
evolves.
sorry.
I know you started getting a fortune.
No,
what about you? I mean, you were one of the elite journalists, rugby league. I hate saying it. You were one of the elite rugby league journalists in our game before you left. What was the biggest story you covered? Well, the biggest story you broke? Because there were a few, just a couple.
I think the first big one, the big couple when I was younger that may not be looked at as big, but there was stuff around Asada around, I've gone blank, but I broke what's his name? Isaac Gordon. There was a story around, I think he said that they injected him with a horse. You remember that story around that? It was really ugly at the time, and he was suing Cronulla. I think I broke the story that he was suing Cronulla, the first player to sue Cronulla, which at the time for me was big. And then Tim Simona, I broke that.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Simona was
betting
against the Tigers, and that was pretty big at the time. But probably the biggest of my career, like I take satisfaction out of like the Angus Crichton stories, like when he's breaking down and telling his story about what he went through his mental health issues and time in rehab, and that gives you satisfaction. Telling Payne Haas's story and he's breaking down, that's great.
The Jarome Luai one was
Jarome Luai's dad.
With his dad, yeah.
When his dad come out of prison, I remember sitting there with his dad and he's crying in their house in Mount Druitt about what he went through to put food on the table for his family and why he did what he did, and to come full circle and to be sitting there with Martin and Jarome the other night when we did his contract, and to see how proud they were of his son was pretty special for me, because everyone will say, oh, tax-free, they're taking the money, but when you understand that journey the family's been through and the sacrifices they've had to make, to be sitting at the table with those guys was pretty special. But I reckon the biggest was Sam Burgess and the Latrell Mitchell stuff. When I broke that Sam Burgess had raised issues of special treatment towards Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker, and then the next morning there was a big meeting and Sam walked out of that club with cameras everywhere. Like that was huge. That was huge. And yeah, I probably didn't realise when I wrote it what was going to unfold.
What about in terms of your biggest setback in journalism? How that sort of shaped you?
Me not talking to him for a couple of years.
Yeah, Robbie not talking to me. Yeah, team JT. No, I actually don't even know why. Yeah, I just think you just got angry in your old age. You didn't like the media. I don't know.
You probably made up some lies about me.
I didn't.
As you journos do.
I was there with Robbie.
What's that? Don't let a good story get in the way of the truth.
Actually, you know what? That story we did with you and Ben, we did one with you when you played, was it 300 at Leichhardt? We went through different points of the field and your special moments there, and that was cool. But the Benji one for his 300th, which you came to, and it's a shame because Benji and I don't know why, but Benji's not a fan of mine. But the 300th game for Benji, we organised Robbie, Pat Richards, Jason Nightingale, and we flew his mum to Leichhardt Oval, and he had no idea. He was sitting inside the sheds at Leichhardt, and then the moment his mum walked into the dressing room and he broke down, like he was emotional with you guys, but then his mum walked in and he broke down like that. To be honest with you, that is the proudest moment of my career, seeing the outpouring of emotions from everyone else for him to share his story. It was, that was pretty cool.
So fast forward to today, obviously you made a name for yourself in journalism. How did this opportunity come about? You're the GM now of the new PNG franchise that's coming in 18 months' time. So far out of left field. Yeah. Like, let's be real, like it probably wasn't a thought for the public. But
it wasn't a thought for me.
Yeah. Well, how did it become a thought for you? Who initiated the conversation? And what attracted you to the role?
Probably when I rang you and said, hey, I heard you're going to be GM of the West Tigers. I thought if you could do it.
Well, please. That was never going to happen. But.
No, I think I love footy, right? And I always felt like that would be cool to do. And you just never think you're going to get the opportunity. You just think, why would a club take a punt on a journo? And so I never really thought it would be realistic. And then the further and further I made it in journalism, and as we spoke about earlier, the financial, because I think once you get on television and radio, that's when you start to earn the money that you can, that elevates you to another level than when you're just doing print. So I was comfortable, but when Peter V'landys, and I got a great relationship with Peter V'landys and Andrew Abda, so when they brought it up with me.
So was it them that initiated the thought?
Yeah. And there was some, to be honest with you, it was around Perth that it first came up. It was just like a couple of muck around comments. And then I started thinking, it'd be cool. And in my head, I thought if I could just take 18 months off journalism and help build the Perth Bears roster through my connections and network, maybe I could provide something for them. That would be pretty amazing. And sort of floated it with V'landys, and he's like, no, why not be GM? Why not be? And I'm like, I don't really want to leave journalism, and then I thought about it for a while, and there were a few appointments, and obviously, Reedy would know that I'm close to Brad Arthur. He was in the mix. I thought, well, naturally there might be an opportunity there to work with Brad. But the further and further it went on, I just thought probably not the right fit for me and everything I was doing in media. But then Papua New Guinea, they came, it was 6-8 months later. I was with Andrew Abdo in Papua New Guinea. Reedy, you were there.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, you were there.
I saw you guys whispering in the back of the room and thought there's something going on here.
He was there. We went to cover, and to be honest with you, it was just to cover what it was like in Papua New Guinea in the lead up to the Chiefs coming in. I wanted to do a big piece around the details, where they're going to live, how it's going to work. And I pitched it to go myself, but the Herald didn't want to fund it. In the end, the NRL said, that's a good idea. You know what, we'll fund it, but we have to ask the Telegraph to come. So this bloke ended up coming. And in the end...
I could have been the GM.
I was going to say, were you fighting for the same role?
Hey, well, we were in the back of the room, me and Abdo
you failed your audition.
Badly.
Too old, too slow. No. And it wasn't even around PNG. It was just a conversation around, what do you want to do? Are you happy in media? Is there a role that you'd like? And then at the Ashes, I was over there and V'landys and Abdo were there, and it was asked, well, what about Papua New Guinea? I was like, what about Papua New Guinea? And I said, would you want to do it? I was like, come on, like, I've got 3 young kids. What do you mean? And then I went back and told my wife, and I said, they asked me about Papua New Guinea, and I was like, nah, not for me. But she's like, why? And I said, I just assumed you wouldn't want to do it. She's like, well, what would it be like? And then we just started talking, and I actually discarded it without giving it any thought. And then when I stopped and thought about it and did my homework, actually went over there with my wife and began to understand the vision of Prime Minister James Marape and the people and what it could actually do to people. I remember driving through the street and seeing all these kids playing footy on the corner of a road, and all they wanted to do was play footy. And it just reminded me of when I was like, you come home from school every afternoon, you're just footy till it's dark, you come in,
it's a great experience. I've played there. I think I'm probably the most capped player for the Prime Minister's 13.
Oh, you want to
because we never played finals for the Tigers for a long time. So I'd always get picked in the PM's 13 to stay fit in case I got picked for the Four Nations tour. So I think I played 6 times.
Wow.
I think I was probably the most capped player.
You got a passport.
So I've been to Moresby, and I think is it what's the other island there? Kokopo.
Yeah,
Kokopo, and we played there, and it's incredible. Like Michael says, you get to the airport and there's just a sea of people chanting your name. They all know who you are. It's the only country in the world, I think, where rugby league's a national sport. They chase the bus down the street. Yeah. After the game, they literally mob you. Like rugby league's a religion over there, and the rugby league players are seen as gods. And it's not an understatement when I say that. It's incredible when you go over there and experience it. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
When you sorry to turn into asking questions, but like if you were still playing, given your experiences there, like do you think it's something that you would have immediately thought, I'd like to go there? Like what do you think players are thinking right now?
Look, it's a culture shock. It is. It's very raw. It's very confronting. It is a culture shock. And I think, as you've seen in the media now, a lot of the question marks around the living conditions. And that's going to be the biggest question for players looking to sign there. Obviously, the tax-free money is great, and that's a massive carrot to dangle in front of players. But when you look at players that have young families, and you've got a young family yourself, so you can probably talk more about the living conditions over there, but you just want to know you're going to be safe, because it is an environment that you can probably feel a little bit unsafe if it's not controlled, because they're mad. They're rugby league mad, and I don't think they don't mean any harm. They actually love you that much. that they just want to touch you and grab you and whatever. So it can feel a little bit daunting. But I think in the right environment with the playing condition, the living conditions that they're talking about, I think it'll be great for the community. You'll be adored over there. You'll be loved. You'll be treated like a rock star. And it's a great project. So to be there from the start, like you are, helping build it, I think, and now with Jarome having signed on, I think other players will realise, well, if Jarome signed, that's a massive tick of confidence.
Yeah.
You know, and if he's got a young family and he's willing to go over there, well, then I think that eases a lot of the concerns that other players have.
Mick, what do you think players are thinking? You're talking to them. Yeah. What are they? Well, you know what they're thinking.
I think Jarome even said it in his press conference. Like, your initial thought that gets you into the conversation is, oh yeah, it's tax free, right? We're not stupid. We know people are going to be attracted by the money, but I genuinely believe it's not money that got Jarome over the line. Like, until he went over to Papua New Guinea, I wasn't confident that we were going to get him, because the money can get you into the conversation. And for us, even if that's the kind of person that only comes for money, then we don't want them. Why we as a club wanted Jarome is because the things you touched on. He's a family man. He's got young kids, right? He's adored in the Pacific. He's a Polynesian man. He's Samoan heritage. It ticked every single box for us. And he's got such a great influence with the players in the game. He's been at successful clubs. He's played alongside guys at New South Wales, State of Origin. He's got a big reach. Now, it ticked every box, but until you get them over there, and I knew he wouldn't be daunted or intimidated by going to Papua New Guinea, because he goes back to Samoa. And even when he was over there, he was talking about it feels similar to him. This is not a uncharted territory, you know, and he loves that lifestyle. And when the Prime Minister's sitting in front of you explaining to him, and it has nothing to do with footy, but the impact you're going to have on reducing domestic violence, on getting kids to school, changing lives, uniting this country, because there are so many tribes in that country who have differing views and opinions, and the one thing that unites them is rugby league. And I think that without the Prime Minister and without seeing it for himself, just how powerful it can be, we don't get him. Like, the money wasn't going to get him over the line. It got him into the conversation, but it wouldn't have got him over the line.
You built great networks as a journo, right? That's what journos do. We build networks, right? How much have you lent on those people in terms of helping you prepare for this role, and now you're in this role, actually make it a success? Like, and can you tell us who, anyone in particular who's spoken to in the game of rugby league or outside of it to make sure this is a success?
There's probably no secret to you that a guy that I consider a mentor of mine is, and I've got a great relationship with, is Matt Cameron, the Panthers CEO. When I was going through all this, I had a lot of conversations with him about the role and how it would work. And I think what they've done at Penrith is incredible. It speaks for itself. So Matt Cameron is someone I'm constantly in dialogue with over, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? How do we do this? And that's, I guess, the benefit of, everyone said, oh, what would he know about running a club? Well, I get it, you know. But what I did have was the connections and the relationships that if I did get in a pickle, that I'd be able to ring Blake Solly or ring Nick Politis or ring Matt Cameron and Adam Druisi. All these guys that I've built a very close relationship with over the years, I consider them guys who are mentors and who will help me regardless of the fact they're at other clubs. So I've been using that, you know. I'm not ashamed to admit that there are things that I need to learn and put the right people around me. So if I take advantage of my strengths, which you mentioned around the networking, then and learn and put people that can help me in the other sections, then over time, hopefully we're in a good place. And I feel like.
Have you told Matty you're coming for his players or what?
Yeah, I have actually.
Camo, yeah.
Yeah, well, because I rang Matt before we approached Ivan. I've got too much respect for him to go and go behind. Not that it would have been a surprise, but I wasn't going to go behind his back. So I said, man, I'm just giving you the heads up that we'd be mad not to ask Ivan Cleary. His contract will end at 27. We come in at 28. I'm going to ask the question. And he respected that. And I gave him assurances that he's not silly. He's got 9-10 players who are off contract of the year that we come into the competition. I said they're going to be targets of ours, especially because they've had success this is an opportunity for them to do something different, set themselves up for life and have an adventure of a lifetime. So naturally we're going to go for their players, but I'm not going to blindside him with anything. We're not going to do anything. And I think that's how I want to operate. I don't want to, and there's been coaches who have rung me and said, mate, if you want to ask questions about our players, ring me, tell me, we'll work with you. So no, that's not going to be with everyone. Some clubs hate me. I'm not going to name names. Some clubs hate me even more than they did. Yeah. But yeah, it's.
But part of it, obviously, recruitment's huge. You look at, you're going out, targeting marquee players. But I dare say a part of your job as well is to invest in the grassroots and give opportunities to young Papua New Guinean kids so that they've got a pathway to grow up and play for their local team. How strong is the grassroots over in PNG, and how many of the core or the squad in 2028 do you think will come from local players?
Yeah, we're lucky because the NRL has invested heavily in the last 3 years, and Reedy would have heard that conversation over there when we were sitting in the boardroom back in October. Joey Grimer and the guys over in the in Papua New Guinea who have been sent over there, who set up academies all over the country, will reap the benefits of what they've done the last 3 years. Now, it might not be immediate, but in 5 years' time, that team will start to grow with a lot of Papua New Guinean players. By the time we get to the end of the 10 years, which is when the tax-free incentive at the moment is due to come to an end, that club's going to be sustainable with the majority of Papua New Guineans. Well, it won't be everyone. Like the Warriors don't have 100% Kiwis in that team. It's still an element. This is a professional football team, and you need the best players. But what we're building now and what they've started building is to ensure that Papua New Guineans are the future of that organisation.
Mick, you've obviously got players who are coming to PNG. They're going to be paid tax-free dollars. They're going to be earning a lot of money, young blokes, old blokes. What sort of responsibility do the Chiefs take, do you take, for ensuring the players look after their money, are secure financially with the money they earn while they're at the club?
Refers them to us.
Look, yeah, probably not so much the Australian guys, but definitely the Papua New Guinean guys. Like, you have to understand, even a young Papua New Guinean boy on a development contract on 80,000, that is a lot of money. Like that puts them in a different world, and the financial pressure that's going to come on these young kids from their village, it's a bit different to the Polynesian community where you sort of support your family and your extended family. There is an expectation in Papua New Guinea that you support your whole village if you're the breadwinner, and with that comes a lot of pressure. With that comes a lot of people who want things, and if you're a young 19, 20-year-old kid and you have to deal with that, it could be difficult. So maybe not the Aussie guys, because they've got their managers, they understand their money's going to go back home into investments. But we've got to factor in the consideration around young PNG boys who may come from nothing, come from villages, not a lot of money, who are suddenly living at Airways in our facility, who have got family ringing them wanting to stay. You got 20 family members wanting to come and live in a two-bed. Like, they're the kind of pressures that we're going to have to deal with.
Are there structures you've put in place around that? Like,
not as yet. Like, we obviously, there's myself, Lorna, Liam Mayub are the only three really appointed staff at the moment. But once we've got a wellbeing team, once we've hired the right people, that's a key part of what we do. And I think we'll have the biggest wellbeing team of any team in the competition. Like, it goes without saying. And we're going to have to focus on the young Papua New Guinean guys to make sure that they are looked after. So, yeah, from an Aussie point of view, like, we probably won't get involved, but definitely PNG side of things.
I suppose it gives you a perspective about the life-changing ability this footy team has, right, when you talk about young kids who come from nothing.
Yeah.
Being able to earn, as you said, dev deals, 50, 60 grand, right, minimum. So you're right, it's significant money for those guys. It can make a real difference, yeah?
It will. And even, like, I think the guys that have come into the Hunter system in the Queensland Cup, and speaking to people over there at the moment, they've got experience in dealing with that, because even at that level, it can get to their head and it can create a lot of problems for them. They get a bit of money, they go out, they live the life, and it affects their football. So it's really important for us. That's why guys like Jarome Luai are important, because they have people around them to show them what professionalism looks like, what it takes to get to the top. And if you have guys who aren't setting that standard and showing the young Papua New Guineans the way that it needs to be, then you just increase the risk of them going off the rails. So, yeah, I think it's important. It's important that we do.
Well, thanks for joining us, Mick. And
Yeah, it's been good. Very insightful. Way better journo than Reedy. Way better on the podcast than Reedy too.
I thought we'd stopped.
Yeah, we are. No.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
No, it's great stuff.
I've never heard a nice word from Robbie about me. It's
No,
nice
it's only
to
because Reedy's here. I'm actually not
You're not
trying to
rapping
talk
me.
well
We can
about
see
you.
a
I'm
Robbie
just trying
League
to put
during his
crap
career,
on
can't
him.
we?
So you're a Queenslander, so
appreciate you having me, boys.
No, we appreciate being on, Mick. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with PNG, and
Thank
stay
you.
tuned for the next episode of Athlete's Journey.